Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we've got a hopefully interesting discussion video. We're talking about crossbar locking knives. And I actually made a video pretty much identical to the one I'm about to make right now, almost exactly a year ago. I'll link that video in the description or in cards or at the end screen or something like that if you want to check that out. We picked a little bit of a better venue though. We're out here in the mountains. Today out in the Tusus Mountains instead of in my living room like the last video was filmed at. So there's an upgrade. But the topic today is crossbar locks are cool again. Now I hear you, okay? I hear you. Some of you are saying, Gideon, when have crossbar locking knives ever not been cool? Well, for me, crossbar locking knives weren't very cool for a long, long time. All right, so let's go ahead and give a little bit of background. When I was first getting into this hobby, one of the first knives that was being thrown at me was a Benchmade bug out, right? I was hearing so many great things about the Benchmade bug out. Oh, this, oh, that, it's amazing. And to me, one of the most interesting things was that it had the axis lock. Now, I've always been a knife guy, but I just wasn't always a knife enthusiast. And so I was familiar with back locks and slip joints and liner locks and frame locks. But the crossbar lock, this axis lock, that was something cool. That was something different. So I knew I had to get myself a couple of Benchmades. And I did. And I don't actually have my bug out with me today. But I do have my my Osborne, my 940. I have not shown this knife on the channel very much. I used to carry this a lot. If any of you followed me on Instagram back in the olden days before I even had this YouTube channel, you'll know that I was posting this knife fairly frequently. This was one of the first high-end knives that I bought. I really enjoyed using this knife on the ranch. I really, really loved having this kind of legendary knife in my pocket. And, you know, that crossbar lock was a big motivator for me. So, Benchmade. They are responsible for bringing this lock to the market. Of course, they call it the axis lock. Well, a couple years ago, their patent expired. And so now other people can start using this lock without risk of, being yelled at or threatened with a lawsuit. And we are seeing an explosion, a proliferation of these locks on the market. I think it's starting to slow down a little bit now. We're seeing a lot more like compression locks because Spyderco's compression lock has expired. But they're still pretty popular. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, the crossbar lock has some great features. It's super strong, number one. I mean, you don't want a weak knife lock, right? The entire purpose of a knife lock is to keep that blade from closing until you want it to close. So the stronger the lock, the better it is at being a lock. The other thing is that it's fully ambidextrous. You can grab this knife or this lock from either side, whether you're a left-handed person or a right-handed person, and you can operate that lock just the same. I'm a right-handed person, so I'm doing it with my left hand. It's a little bit awkward. But yeah, the ambidextrous nature of it is a huge selling point. It's also pretty fidgety. I mean, you can use the lock as a deployment method. You can, whack these blades around and swing them around and stuff. So there's a lot going on for this lock that's appealing, that's attractive, especially to an enthusiast, right, or collector. So I got real big into crossbar locks. Well, maybe not real big into them, but I really liked them. And so then I got a Hogue Deco with their crossbar lock, and I can't remember what they called their crossbar lock. By the way, let's pause. Let's pause for a second. Interruption. Kershaw calls their version of the crossbar lock the Duralock. QSP calls it the Glide Lock. Hogue, I can't believe I'm spacing on it right now. Whatever it is. They've got a name for it. Guys, come on, stop. Okay, Axis Lock is a badass name, number one. Like, you're never going to top Axis Lock. But, when it was proprietary to Benchmade, it only made sense that they had their own name for the lock. Now that it's public use, just call them crossbar locks. We don't need these new stupid names for the same thing. They're all the same thing. That's the frustrating part, is they're all the same thing. Kaiser has a clutch lock, that gets a pass. Okay, I'll give the clutch lock a pass because it's trying to do something a little bit different, a little bit interesting. It's kind of innovating on the lock, you know, having it be adjustable. Everyone else, though, is just making regular-ass crossbar locks. We don't need all these new names. In fact, I am so surprised that I remembered Duralock and Glide Lock. By the way, I've got a bunch of knives sitting over here that we're going to talk about here in a second. I'm surprised I remembered those names because they're just crossbar locks. And all the names that people are coming up with are just stupid. They're just kind of stupid. Clutch Lock is also kind of a stupid name, by the way. But, again, we're giving Kaiser a pass because they're innovating on it. Anyways, pushing that aside, the Hogue Deca. I got this knife. I fell in love with it. I absolutely loved this knife. This thing was incredible. I carried it a little bit one summer working out in the mountains, and then I carried it to university for a couple semesters. I loved it. This knife was so, so incredible. And then I came home for Christmas, and I was working on the ranch in the cold, in the snow. Of course, I'm bundled up in my gloves and everything. And I tried to carry this knife. What I realized pretty quickly was that I absolutely hated trying to manipulate that crossbar lock when my fingers were cold or when I was wearing gloves. It was just kind of difficult. And that kind of stopped me from carrying this knife. And then, of course, I was getting more into knives. I was carrying a lot more things. I was exposing myself to all kinds of different makers and brands and designs. And I realized that I didn't really like crossbar locks because the detent on the deployment sometimes isn't all that satisfying. I realized that really I didn't like messing around with little buttons all that much, and there was just better things out there. And so I kind of stopped carrying crossbar locks, and they became kind of uncool to me until about a year ago. And then the knives that brought me back into crossbar locks are so stupid. It's so stupid. Again, you can watch that other video, but it was Ozark Trail with this little knife here. And this one right here, which, by the way, this thing has a fantastic action. This is actually a really darn cool knife. This one was in a holiday pack for 2023, and this knife is really freaking cool. It is way, way better than it has any right to be. This knife is stupid good. But these made me start thinking, you know what? Maybe I'm ready to give crossbar locks another try. I mean, around this time, other companies were coming out with their own versions of this, and I thought, I'm going to try it. And so the first new knife with a crossbar lock that I bought was the Bestech Slasher, and I freaking love this knife. If you guys don't know, this is one of my favorite knives ever. I freaking love this knife. And the design was so good. I will say, the crossbar lock in this, not the strongest detent ever, but the design on this knife was so good. I appreciate that they have this ambi lock. You know, we're not having to make room in here for a line or anything. Keeps the ergonomics so clean and even. I was like, you know what? Let's give crossbar locks another try. And so, in the year since, I've been giving crossbar locks another try, and I have been really, really impressed. Of course, there's, you know, those goofy knives. Ozark Trail. You know, we've got a bunch of goofy axis lock or crossbar lock knives from them, but they're fun, and they make these $5 knives feel special. Well, $10 in this case. They make these knives feel a little bit more special. And if you guys don't know, I'm an Ozark Trail fanboy. These are the kind of knives that I carried as a teenager, and it's good seeing them like trying to do cool stuff, right? And this one right here, this actually has an incredible, oh my gosh, that thing just pops. It's got a great action on that thing. Way, way better than any $5 knife has any right to feel. And some of my favorite knives that I have carried and reviewed this year have been crossbar locks. I'm talking the Kershaw Mini Iridium, the QSP Vault, and the CJRB Shale. And each one of these knives, in my opinion, wow, that Shale's got a dirty blade. Each one of these knives, in my opinion, does the crossbar lock better than Benchmade. And that's kind of the theme that I've started to notice. Stick in that piece of wood. you belligerent little shit. That's the thing that I've started to notice, is most people would agree that the Axis lock is not the best crossbar lock out there anymore. This CJRB Shale really, really impressed me. This is a $50 knife. Oh my gosh, that crossbar lock action, it feels like it has a detent. And so you get that nice snappy action with all the other benefits that you get with a crossbar lock. Used to be that the action was kind of mushy to a degree. And you just have to, well, that's a trade-off for all these other awesome features that the lock offers. I really don't feel like you have to make that compromise anymore. And I know a lot of people are going to ask, no, I don't own any clutch lock knives. I've handled a couple of Kaisers with a clutch lock this year, but I don't own any clutch lock knives. I know. Why am I making this video when I haven't even owned a clutch lock yet? I just haven't got around to it, guys. Give me a break. Give me a break. But I know that Kaiser, and I think Vosside also uses the clutch lock. They're doing amazing things with it. It's great. Having that adjustable spring tension is an incredible feature. To be honest, I'm surprised that they're the first people that did that, because it seems like kind of a no-brainer, right? That's like the only way that you can improve the Axis or the crossbar lock any further is making it tunable. So that's really, really awesome. But yeah, Benchmade, they don't do the crossbar lock the best anymore. And this knife here was given to me recently by someone. I think this is a Benchmade Crooked River, but something to I suspect that this one's a fake. Oh, I've got all kinds of dirt and stuff in there. But yeah, Benchmade no longer owns a monopoly on this kind of lock, and I think that's a great thing. Ooh, capitalism, competition breeds creativity, right? But to be honest, after that patent expired and people got their hands on this mechanism, they were able to say, okay, Benchmade got comfortable. They had this really cool thing, no one else had it, and so they didn't feel like they had to innovate or fix anything on it. We can do that. And they did. Oh, boy, howdy, they did. And Benchmade, to be completely fair, Benchmade is not just sitting on their thumbs, right? They have innovated with the Axis lock. They've made a couple versions that have a coil spring instead of the Omega springs. That's one of the big issues with the... Oh! My cousin just drove by in a log truck. That's one of the big issues with the crossbar lock that remains, is that those Omega springs can be a little bit weak. This knife here, it's held up so far through all the use I've put through it, but if I use this steadily for like a year or so, I imagine those Omega springs will go out. But even so, replacing Omega springs isn't the worst thing ever. So in conclusion, is a crossbar lock my favorite lock ever? No, I wouldn't say it is, but I think it's cool again. I think it's a really fun lock, and honestly, it does have the potential to become one of my favorite locks. I think I like the crossbar lock better than liner locks and frame locks, maybe, and I love liner locks and frame locks. I'll have to think about that a little bit more, but yeah, the crossbar lock's cool. It's cool again, and I'm glad that I can be on the crossbar lock train again. I'm going to have to test out some clutch lock knives and get my opinions on those straightened out, but yeah, used to be whenever I see a crossbar lock knife, I'd be kind of like, whatever, it's a crossbar lock. And now I kind of look for crossbar locks, see like, okay, let's see if there's any designs with crossbar locks that interest me. Might want to check those out. And yeah, it's a great thing. But I want to hear what you guys think about crossbar locks. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you love them? Indifferent? Let me know in the comments down below. Big shout out to my channel members right here at the Cowboy level. I really appreciate everything they do. If you want to become a channel member and get early access to videos and get emojis and other exclusive perks, there's a button down below where you can join up. As for the rest of you rascals, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe, and share it. I don't tell you guys to share these videos enough. Share it. It helps the channel a lot. I should also probably start doing some of this stuff at the beginning of the video, but I hate saying this, and I hate listening to it in other channels, but, it's the YouTube thing to do. We have to do it, so I appreciate it if you do all those things I just listed. But, yeah, that's going to be it for today. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.